All right. Hey guys, welcome to this episode this week. So, today I want to talk about this idea that life gives you opportunities to heal when it comes to OCD and anxiety and pretty much everything else. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Matt Cotty, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and the founder of Restored Minds and the creator of the AAA Response. And one of the things about OCD and anxiety is a lot of your recovery is contingent upon how your perception, right? I mean, life is really contingent on perception, right? Your beliefs, your stories, how you view things, right? Because how you view things is going to determine how you react, which is going to determine what you do, which is going to determine your results. So when it comes to understanding OCD and anxiety, let's go ahead and step back and kind of like a higher, 50,000 foot view for a second and talk about, okay, like when we talk about dealing with OCD and anxiety, most people are, when they talk about their goals in treatment, like initially, right? When we first talk, like, hey, what's your goal? Most people will say something to the effect of, well, I want to get rid of these thoughts. I want to get rid of these feelings. I don't like these, right? We're trying to essentially move away from the pain, the discomfort we're experiencing, which is a natural human instinct, right? It's a very, very natural thing to do. Now, the issue with that is that it presupposes the idea that your major goal in life is to feel good, to be happy, right? That's what our objective is. And that's not necessarily the case, right? I mean, because in my belief, that's actually not the purpose in life, is to feel good, right? It's a more like hedonistic view. Whereas if the purpose of life is growth, well, growth often comes through discomfort. If the purpose of life is to evolve and to really self-actualize and reach the highest form of yourself, well, obstacles are going to be required to help you get there. And when it comes to OCD and anxiety, what I've found is that a lot of people view things that trigger them as these terrible events. In fact, they get so upset sometimes. I mean, I've seen people get really, really angry at other people and people for doing things that triggered them, and the person was completely like unbeknownst to it. I mean, whether it's touching a doorknob or contaminating an item, and the thing is that the other person is completely unaware that they even did anything, but they carry, like, people that I've talked to that really get triggered by certain events harbor so much anger and just resentment and just like, wow, I can't believe they would trigger me like that. And again, if we operate from the belief and the story that we're only supposed to feel good and that we're supposed to be happy, and when we're anxious, we're not. So the goal is to get rid of anxiety, which means we got to get rid of triggers. It's going to lead to a very tough life because it means you're going to have to control your environment. In fact, this is why, with extreme cases of anxiety, people will end up just staying in their house. We call that agoraphobia, right? Or they'll just be locked in their house because essentially there's too many external triggers that they're experiencing. But today I want to offer a reframe for the idea of triggers, right? And because once you can start to see triggers like this, OCD and anxiety, the symptomology you experience, whether it's intrusive thoughts, whether it's high levels of stress and anxiety, or anything else, the symptomology and the experience of it can make sense in a different way, right? You see, most of us, what we do is we just assume the idea that the intrusive thoughts are bad, the anxiety is bad, and we move away from it. We try to get rid of it, right? But what if we started to look at triggering events as opportunities for growth? And you might be like, well, Matt, that's dumb. I don't want to. No, that doesn't make sense. I don't want any part of this. But hear me out for a second. How has doing what you've been doing, right? How has that been working? How is looking at anxiety as a bad thing? How has that been working for you? These are questions that you're going to have to ask yourself on the path to recovery, because if you choose to view anxiety as bad and just blanket statement that, of course it's bad, and just assume that that's true, every time you experience it, you're going to do something to try to get rid of it, which is going to then paradoxically perpetuate the loop. Whereas if we start to understand that anxiety is an energetic experience in our body, right? That's what anxiety is. And if we actually kind of take more of a neutral stance towards it, as anxiety is not good or bad, it's just a thing. It's a thing we experience, right? See, so much of our reaction comes back down to how we define things, how we choose to view them, our perception of them. But anxiety, if it's just a neutral thing, then if we experience it, we don't have to have a specific viewpoint or kind of a like we don't have to have a specific belief structure that then causes us to operate in a very reactive state. So we can start to take a more intellectual approach to it, as well as not so much of an emotional reactive stance, and we can respond in healthier ways. So with anxiety, the reason that I want to bring this up is because triggers are going to happen. Things are going to happen in our environment that are going to trigger us, that are going to cause an emotional reaction in our body, right? That is uncontrollable. You cannot fight that if you're going to live on this earth as a human being. Like, you are going to have things that cause reactions in you. People are going to say things you don't like. Things are going to happen that you don't want to happen. You're going to experience things that you're afraid of. But that's just it. It's your fear that you're experiencing, right? Most people don't realize fear is mainly driven on perception. A good example that I use all the time is, I don't particularly like snakes, but I've watched people who handle snakes and it doesn't bother them at all. It's the same exact snake, but we're having two completely different reactions to it. There's people that are afraid of flying. There's people that love flying. There's people that, are afraid of germs. There's people that don't care about them, right? Every fear out there. So many of us think fear of an item is a universal thing, but it's really based on perception. Almost always. So if our fear gets stimulated based on a trigger that we aren't expecting or, didn't know was going to happen, instead of viewing that as a bad thing, I want to challenge that today. And I want to offer the idea that what if we use that as an opportunity for growth? What if we begin to look at our triggers and the times that we get stimulated, or the times that we get an emotional reaction kind of hits our body. And again, we're talking about the uncomfortable emotions that we experience. Could even be things like anger, right? Stress, sadness. These experiences, instead of fighting the experience of that, what if we embrace those things as opportunities? Opportunities for us to better understand ourselves, opportunities for us to challenge our perceptions, opportunities for us to grow and evolve into a higher self, on that path to, if that really is one of the objectives of life, and one of the points of life is to grow and experience life and to become, right, the best version of yourself. I once heard it said, and I just love this quote, that souls come to earth to evolve, and that's one of the points of life, is to not just sit here and be, comfortable and be happy and just kind of be in this box, but to really see what you can become. And the way that happens is through experiencing discomfort a lot of times. And the more we're willing to do that, what I've found is that the quicker that experience actually passes, paradoxically. And the less afraid you are of discomfort, the more you're willing to open up your life and to really experience new opportunities, right? And by taking these steps and potentially reframing it, as life happens for you, right, as opposed to you. And this is really that core belief structure that I'm talking about, because so many people see life as something that's happening to them, especially when you're dealing with OCD anxiety. I can't believe that happened. Oh my gosh, you see how unlucky I am. That trigger just happened, right? Life is this experience you're having to navigate. But if life is happening for you, then the triggers that you're experiencing are things and opportunities that you can use to recover. Because again, if you experience the fear and you don't engage in any behaviors, that's what breaks the loop and ultimately allows, through neuroplasticity, for your brain to start that rewiring process of changing your perception to what you were afraid of. This is why through a repetitive exposure, someone can go from being completely paralyzed at the idea of touching, let's say, a door handle, to in a short while, opening doors with no problem. Because through exposure and response prevention, we're able to change one's perceptions, one's beliefs, and we're also able to change, essentially, like I said, the whole belief structure that's been driving this fear and these behaviors and these loops that people get stuck in. And that really is the problem of OCD anxiety, right? It's getting caught in this loop and loop and loop. And the longer you stay in that loop, again, the smaller and smaller your life becomes. And so the reason I wanted to offer this today is because I talked about in the last episode how once you can start to see intrusive thoughts, the more you actually experience them, the more opportunity you have to really engage in exposure and rewire your brain. It's the same with external triggers. If someone triggers you at work, or if someone triggers you, at church, or like a family member, you have to see that as your opportunity. It has nothing to do with them, right? The illusion that we fall into is that the outside world is the thing we have to control, when really it's the inner world, right? It's our own work within ourselves. It's always where the work is. And if we focus on that, when something hits our stuff, whatever that is, it could be the ice cream truck drove by too fast. I mean, who knows, right? Once that stuff is stimulated, realize that that's where your attention needs to be. That's where your work is, right? And if you can start to do that, you can start to see the triggers that happen for me. I've seen so many times when I've been working with people, whether we're doing an intensive or, just out doing exposures in the community, right? I mean, I can't tell you the exact thing that needed to happen for that person to face their fear just happened, right? I remember there was, a time where I had a client who was afraid of birds, and lo and behold, you can't make this up. We were walking across the street and we saw a dead bird right in front. I've never seen that, I don't know, in my life, right? But it was just right in front of us that day. And I can't tell you just how many times the exact thing that the person was afraid of just kind of showed up in our path. And as I've seen this happen more and more and more, especially as I've been guiding people on this journey, or I have the opportunity to guide people on this journey, I just start to really just have come to the belief that life happens right for you. Your triggers happen for you. They help you heal. And if you can see them like that and you can embrace them like that, then they aren't scary. They're in many ways, you can see them as these incredible opportunities just that were just planted right in front of you. So it's just something to consider this week, something to, kind of ponder. And the next time you have a trigger that you experience, instead of assuming it's bad, try to step back for a second and just ask yourself, is this an opportunity? If you can just ask yourself that question, oftentimes that's enough to really start putting us on the path that's going to help us in the recovery over the long term. So for those of you that are looking for support on this journey, over at Restored Minds, we have various options to support you. In fact, we have a free guide that you can get access to right now. It's down right in the notes beneath this, or in the notes for the show. So you can just you can download that and start there, and it'll talk about the AAA response and kind of talk about how you can start using it in your life. But we also have again, self-directed programs, group programs, as well as individual. And so if this is something that you wrestle with and you struggle with OCD and anxiety, it's not a journey that you need to go on alone. In fact, I'm going to be moving into a series on that, of why getting guidance is so important. And really, it's kind of your shortcut to recovery, because the guidance allows you to bypass a lot of the mistakes that other people make instead of trying to go through it and learn it yourself. So anyways, over at Restored Minds, we have a bunch of resources for you. Please check that out. As always, please help us out on the show by liking and subscribing and sharing, however you can. And if you can, also please leaving us a review on iTunes, because that will help, our rankings as well. So, but anyways, I hope you guys have a great week. I look forward to continuing and starting this new series actually on guidance and coaching, because I just see it as so valuable and something that I'm really excited to talk about next week. And with that said, hope you guys have a wonderful day. All right, take care. Thank you so much for watching that video. And so if you're struggling with OCD and anxiety, I just wanted to let you know that we have a free training for you over at Restored Minds, where you can start learning how to use our AAA response to really break out of that loop and ultimately take back control of your life. And all you need to do to access is just click the little link below, and you'll be taken to a page where you can register today. Thank you so much.